And we are live. What is going on, YouTube Live? It's your boy, Billy Rowe. Long time no see. I'd like to welcome you to the first row. Man, I missed you guys. I've missed producing content, but I definitely have been active in the background working on a few things. However, today we are jumping back for this month's, just January. It's January. Wow. January's first Wednesday word of the year. I hope you guys are ready. If it is Wednesday, as always, you should know it's time for the Wednesday word. Wednesday word. Let's jump straight into it. So tonight's topic is difficult growth. As always, I like to share what I mean by my topics. With difficult growth, really, it's about operating in the areas where we may have some weaknesses or where we may have shortcomings, and working intentionally to grow in those areas. It's easy to look at an area like, let's say you're a singer. If you're really good at singing, it's easy to look at that area and say, I want to grow in this particular area of singing. It's completely different to be a singer who doesn't know how to play the piano and say, you know what, in order to improve in my singing and improve in my songwriting, I want to start learning how to play the piano so that I can put together melodies that I can later on sing to. That may be an area of weakness for you. And so, really focusing on those difficult areas of growth, especially as we enter into the new year. Growth is something that's on a lot of people's minds. And so, I just really want to take a moment to just talk about difficult growth. As always, I have three tools for you for the first row. I'm really looking forward. I can see that somebody actually is in here. Let me say what's up to the people really quick. Brother Bruce Gatewood Almighty. Welcome back, fam. I'm glad you could join in. I'm glad you also got the notification, so thank you. That lets me know that it's actually working. But I have three tools for you tonight for the first row when it comes to difficult growth. These are tools that I take time ahead of time before we get to the show to really reflect on and see how I've gotten through some of the areas of difficult growth for myself, and continue to work through some of the areas of difficult growth for myself. Because growth is not a one-time event, it is a continual event. So jumping straight into it, tool number one when it comes to difficult growth that I thought was really important to bring to the surface is give yourself permission to use training wheels. And at first I had this as don't be afraid to rip the band-aid off. But really, when I started reflecting on it more deeply, it's about giving yourself the ability to use training aids. Let's say, I'm in elementary school. I'm still learning how to do math. I'm really new to this whole math concept. It's okay to say, you know what, while I'm learning math, and while I'm trying to understand it and get the right answer, to use my fingers. It's okay to say, okay, 5 plus 5 equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's okay to use training wheels. And by giving yourself permission to use training wheels or training aids, what you're doing is you're helping to start strengthening your mind in its weakness before you actually start moving forward for the actual growth that you're seeking to get. Well, the reason I also use training wheels is because when you're using training wheels, one of the important things is that you want to make sure that you have an offsetting. You don't want to become 100% reliant. Like I'm now in my 30s, in my late 30s. I don't want to still be counting math on my fingers. I want to at some point be able to move away from the math on my fingers and move to mental math. And maybe if it's much more complicated, at least being able to write out the problem to solve the problem. So one of the important things when you are going to give yourself permission to use training wheels is that you're not using them as you would use crutches, where when you're on crutches, you would balance your weight on both crutches. You move both crutches forward, and your weight is continually evenly distributed across those crutches. That is an aid to help you recover. However, with training wheels, what you do is you actually offset the training wheels. So that way, when one's on the ground, the other one's off. And when the other one's on the ground, the other one's off. And what that does is it teaches you to find that balance point. I remember when I was learning how to drive a stick, my god sister actually taught me how to drive a stick. And one of the things that she taught me was rather than trying to figure out clutch, gas, brake, and all that stuff, let's just work on the clutch and find that sweet spot to where when your foot's not all the way off the clutch, but the car starts to roll forward a little bit, but it doesn't become this herky jerky experience. Let's find that. And once you're able to find that, you'll know how to better transition between your clutch and your clutch and your gas. The same thing for training wheels. You don't want both wheels to be on the ground at the same time. And you're like, yeah, look, I've learned how to ride a bike. And then somebody takes the training wheels off and you're like, oh, wait, there's this balancing aspect that I didn't learn. So when you're giving yourself that permission to use training wheels, make sure that you're also offsetting those training wheels, whether that's a calculator, a peer, or whatever it may be, whatever that training wheel may be metaphorically, or whatever that metaphoric training wheel may be, make sure that you're giving yourself enough room for you to show up and be able to be a part of that growth process. Because it's almost like a person who works out and they use steroids to get really, really big. Then when it comes time for their muscles to do the work, and if they're not using steroids, or even if they are using steroids sometimes, what will end up happening is they find themselves injured, or they find themselves with disconnected, I think biceps will disconnect or something like that. They'll find themselves with injuries because of the fact that they were reliant on something that now is either not present or is now not capable of doing the job of creating the balance that's necessary. So that is tool number one. Tool number two is similar to tool number one. However, it's a little different because it has to do more so with people and our ability to be accountable to other people, sometimes more than we're able to be accountable to ourselves. So tool number two is about getting an accountability partner, or in this case, in some cases, accountability partners. So if you've ever been to school, even if you're in high school, college, doesn't really matter. You may have experienced a moment where you've had to use a study group. And the purpose of that study group is to get together, everybody is studying and working on learning the information. That's a form of an accountability partner. And what it does is, even on those days when you don't want to study and you don't want to necessarily learn the thing, or it's difficult or whatever it may be, even in those days, you still will find yourself showing up. Statistically, they will show people will still show up because of the fact that there are other people that are showing up that are counting on them. So they can't count, they can't just show up because they want to count on themselves, but they will show up because other people are counting on them to show up. And so getting yourself an accountability partner is really about being transparent about this difficult growth. And it can be a scary thing to do, because difficult growth, what tends to happen is as we experience that adversity, we want to kind of shy away from it and kind of back down and say, maybe this isn't worth I think I have a coworker who says the squeeze isn't worth the juice. Maybe the squeeze isn't worth the juice. And so we try to back down. And it's very easy to back down when there's nobody to be accountable to but yourself, depending on your personality. But when you have people that are holding you accountable, when you have people that are checking in with you to see what your progress is on this difficult growth that you've said you want to do, then it becomes about, okay, now I'm not just accountable to me, but it's almost like I'm accountable to the team. Hello, Damien. Hello, Kristen. And hello, Sister Carolyn. I appreciate you guys all being on live. So that accountability, finding those accountability partners is really crucial to the success of difficult growth, because not only are these people your accountability partners, these people actually will become your cheerleaders and help encourage and motivate you to continue to move forward, even when you're not having difficult days. When things are going good and you're making good progress, they will be those voices that you can actually hear saying, you know what, I'm so glad that you've taken that leap of faith. I'm so glad that you've made that move to go back to school and get your education. I'm so glad that you made that move to seek that promotion. I'm so glad that you're actually learning this new skill set to apply to your overall toolbox. Those will be the people that will be encouraging you. Even if they're not there, you'll be hearing their voices, but encouraging you to continue in that difficult growth. And that is one of the things that is crucial under the accountability partners, is that difficult growth comes with some negativity. It comes with, and I don't use negativity in the negative sense, but it comes with some deflation of your ego, we'll call it, where you may have thought you had it going on, but then as you start struggling through the things that you don't have going on, it's easy to kind of get caught up in this woe is me, and really you can easily get caught up in depression because you're like, why isn't this coming as easy as everything else that comes easy to me? And so you're going to need that positivity on the back end that can motivate you. And sometimes that positivity may not feel positive in the moment. It may feel like, why are you pushing me to do this? But you have to remember, in the very beginning, you decided that you wanted to grow. And if you decided you wanted to grow, then the onus is on you to not run away and shy away from that. And these people that are trying to hold you accountable to that, those accountability partners, they are invested in your success, not in your failure. Even if you do fail, they're not going to be like, oh my God, you failed at that so horrendously, but they want you to succeed if you have the right accountability partners. So that is tool number two. And then finally, the third tool when it comes to difficult growth, and this was also something that that I still continue to struggle with, but it's about being prepared for uncomfortable conversations and circumstances. So in the beginning of difficult growth, like when you embark on this journey of difficult growth, you're going to find yourself in a place where it's really uncomfortable. And a lot of the things that you're talking about, whether externally to other people or your internal dialogue with your internal stories, is they're going to be uncomfortable things. But one of the things that's one of the most important questions that I continue to ask myself, even sometimes I have to ask myself after the fact. I don't always get this right. Sometimes I get it wrong, and then I have to ask myself these questions after the fact. But one of the questions that I always ask myself is, if the growth that I am seeking is healthy for me, if it's healthy for me, then why would I choose to run back to something that is less healthy? Not necessarily unhealthy, but less healthy than the growth that I'm seeking for myself. And those are those difficult conversations that you're going to have with yourself, where you have to ask yourself, okay, well, am I complacent and okay with being complacent and going back to what was easy, what was not difficult? Or am I only willing to grow in areas that I am strong in, or that I am more likely to achieve success in? Or am I willing to put myself out there and risk failure in order to achieve a better me? And I think really for me, this topic, difficult growth, when I think about all the New Year's resolutions and all these different things that come for a lot of people in the beginning of the year, and then by the end of the first month, they've abandoned them. Whether that's like, the gym is crowded during the first month of the year. By about the middle of February, the gym is empty until the almost the end of the year, or maybe sometimes in summer when people start thinking, I need my summer body. But that thought process of difficult growth and shying away from it and moving back from it, really, I think what happens is we are just not ready to have the difficult conversations and the uncomfortable conversations. And that's where your accountability partner comes in. And then that's where your preparation comes in, being able to say, hey, look, I may fail horribly at this because I'm not good at it. I went to a little paint thing where they have you paint on a canvas. Man, I'm a horrible painter, like horrible painter. And it got to the point where I was like, okay, I can either sit here in misery and try to draw what they're or paint what they're telling me to paint, or I can decide to just have a little fun, do a couple of little paint drawings and be content with my drawing and be done with it. And I realized painting is not an area that I really want to grow in. It's not something that I'm seeking to grow in. So for myself, I was content with let's just have a little bit of fun. We're going to fail, but while we're failing, we're going to have fun. And what I learned about myself is, again, painting is just not for me. So I'm not going to be signing up for any more painting things. But fortunately, that area of growth is not something that is going to add necessarily health, or is not going to be more healthy than the state I am now. The other thing about those uncomfortable conversations is sometimes you might find yourself having to ask yourself, what are you waiting for? For me, I don't really do New Year's resolutions. I just continue with what I was doing in the previous year, because I'm always focused on growth in some state of my life. And because I'm always focused on some growth or growth in some state of my life, I don't attach that necessarily to the calendar. I understand new life, new year, new decade, all those wonderful things. However, if I'm doing what I'm requiring of myself for growth on a regular basis, then it shouldn't, it wouldn't always line up with what the new year has in store. Now, are there some things I want to accomplish in this year? Absolutely. And are those things going to drive me to grow in a more intellectual and articulate way? Absolutely. But it's not because we're in a new year that those things are driving me to do that. It's because of the work that I was in the midst of doing last year that has carried over into this year, that I really want to see some projects come to fruition, and really get more substantial content, not just on the first row, but also in writing and things in that nature. So those are the three tools that I came up with when it comes to difficult growth. Going to go over them really quick for you one more time. The first tool being, give yourself permission to use training wheels. It's okay to have an aid, a training aid, or somebody or something that's going to help you establish or find that balance. Don't be afraid and just jump on a bike with two wheels and then have to spend more time falling off, injuring yourself, trying to recover than you would if you just had training wheels to teach you the balance in the first place. Tool number two is get an accountability partner or partners, people that you trust, people that are going to not just trust with your information, but people that are going to tell you the truth. I think that is one of the most crucial things is if you're surrounding yourself with a bunch of yes men and yes women, you're going to find yourself with a bunch of, yeah, you did that right. And you're golden and everything. And you're going to be like, well, why am I failing so much if everything I'm doing is right? Well, it's because you have cheerleaders instead of accountability partners. They can be cheerleaders, but they also have to be accountability partners. They can't just be cheerleaders. So find yourself some accountability partners, get those, and make sure they're on your team. And then the third thing is be prepared for uncomfortable conversations and circumstances. As we all know, when we first are in something that is unfamiliar, new experiences will always feel foreign, and at many times they will feel forced in the beginning. And as you grow in them, as you mature in them, as you begin to understand them better, that is when that discomfort begins to subside. And you will find that you can and have the ability to turn your weaknesses into true strengths and to assist and to assist you in overcoming difficult growth. So as always with the Wednesday word, actually, before I jump into a story that I like to share with you guys about difficult growth, let me jump into the chat really quick. Yes, love the topic. It's good to see you. Yes, Talon, it is good to see you. It is good to see you, Brother Damien. Really, I don't think that was a struggle for you. I don't know what part you were referring to, but you'd be surprised at the struggles that I've experienced with growth in general. Brother Damien says, I have come to the realization that failure is necessary. Is a necessary ingredient in working towards success as long as you are falling forward. True. And realize you might fall forward and hit your face, but still get back up, get some gauze and keep moving. And then Terrelyn says, failure, fear, and even embarrassment are necessary for greatness. Learning to navigate these are how we grow and master our gifts. Absolutely. And, embarrassment, that is, whew, yeah. We're going to talk about that in this story a little bit because I think there is some of that in this story. So as always with the Wednesday word, I like to share a personal story of mine, something that kind of got me thinking about this topic and made me really want to lead this year off with this topic because it is an area of difficult growth for me that I am currently struggling with and probably will struggle with for quite some time as I continue to try to grow in this area. So this story is really about working with my oldest son and trying to guide him to manhood in a sense where he becomes the adult responsible contributor to society that I think he will inevitably be, but also trying to remember that he's my child and he needs that encouragement and motivation from me. And so I had this experience with him where he's currently going to be going into the armed forces. And one of the things is that in the branch that he's looking at or that he's going to go into, they're looking at him for officer school. And so my thing is, I think all my kids, all three of them, are very intelligent people. They just got to apply their intelligence. But the challenge is that though I think that, I hardly ever voice that. And because of that, I just walk around with this expectation that you're supposed to do what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be excellent. You're supposed to be great. You're supposed to excel. And in that thought process, what I found is I never was taking time to tell my kids that I was proud of them. And so I had told myself, you know what? It's important to convey to Ezekiel that you are proud of him for even being considered for officer school, because it's a great honor. I mean, you're going to get your college paid for. You're going to go into the military as an officer. There's some benefits to this if you get this, if you're selected. But even if you're not selected, the fact that you're considered, I'm proud of that. And so to prepare for this moment to tell him that I'm proud of him, I actually had to reach out to one of my accountability partners and said, hey, before the end of the day, remind me to tell Ezekiel that I am proud of him. And you would think it would be like, well, who has to be reminded to tell their kid they're proud of them? Well, when you're a parent, in the midst of all the other challenges that you're going through with your children, it's easy to actually put, hey, I'm proud of you on the back burner. It's like, well, I told you I love you, or I told you I provided food for you, I provided shelter for you. Well, yeah, but you still haven't said I'm proud of you. And so I reached out to my accountability partner, kind of let her know, hey, I need you to hold me accountable to this because I can't guarantee that I'm going to remember it. And so then, of course, the day comes towards the end. I'm with Ezekiel, my accountability partner is there. And I get home and I'm like, drilling Ezekiel. I can't even remember at this point what I was drilling him on. This is why I say it's like those moments where you think something's very important, you find out later that they're not as important as you thought they were. But I was drilling him on something, and I was just like, and this, 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 and I'm done. And I didn't tell him that I was proud of him. And so then I turned to go and like cook or something in the kitchen, and my accountability partner is like, and you're proud of him. And I'm gonna tell you, honestly, this is why I say it's an area of difficult growth for me. I was like, I just got done having to reprimand him and correct him for what he's doing wrong. I don't feel like telling him I'm proud of him because I'm irritated with him for the other things that I had to tell him about. But they were like, you said you didn't want the day to end without you telling him he's proud, without you telling him that you're proud of him. And I was like, man, it was one of those moments where you're like, man, am I going to choose to run back to what I'm comfortable with? Well, I've already given you instructions on becoming a better man. So therefore, I don't have to tell you I'm proud of you. Am I going to go back to that person? Or am I going to actually move through some of this difficult growth? And part of this difficult growth, going back to what Terlin said, is that embarrassment. Am I going to move through the embarrassment that I just got done having to correct you about something? And then now I'm going to tell you that I'm proud of you about something, because that's embarrassing. You feel like, well, how are you going to tell me all this stuff and then be like, but yo, I'm proud of you? There are some feelings of embarrassment there, because it's like, as a father, I'm looking like, dang, I probably should have led with, I'm proud of you. And then we could have talked at a better pace about the things that I wanted him to work on. And it would not be like, I'm proud of you, but be like, look, I'm really proud of you about the fact that you're accepted into this program or being considered for this program. It's a great honor. It speaks to your intelligence, and that you have this potential that has not been fully tapped yet, and you have the ability to tap it. That said, there's some things that you have done today that I want to also address, but I want to make sure I led with that I'm proud of you. And really looking at the fact that it's an honor to be a father for myself. It's an honor to be a father to my children, even on the days where it is difficult to be the father that I need to be to my children. So that's where it comes down to for me. It's really giving myself to have training wheels, giving myself permission to have training wheels that I'm like, okay, I'm not to the place where I can balance independently and make sure I'm leading with, hey, I'm proud of you. I'm in that encouraging from the perspective of just positive. I'm not to that place yet. So I need some training wheels that are going to help me catch myself before I fall over and off the bike, before I fall over and now I'm just in a negative Nelson. But I also need to be able to feel where that balance is for me to understand, hey, do I need to give this praise in the beginning of the day? I'm really good at writing. Do I need to write this stuff down and make sure I'm reading what I'm going to say so that way I stick to my script? That's how I do the Wednesday word. I stick to my script. Or do I need to have that accountability partner come in and monitor? Really, it sucks to be like an adult in your late 30s, but to be like, you have to monitor me to make sure I do this, because I'm not to a place yet where I can monitor myself and correct myself fast enough to make sure I do it. And then lastly, but not least, being prepared for those uncomfortable circumstances and conversations. It was a very, and it sounds strange, but it was a very uncomfortable conversation to have with my son, simply telling him that I was proud of him of something. It was uncomfortable. And I can admit that honestly, but it was something that was absolutely necessary, because I could see emotionally the impact that that has on my child. I can see the emotional impact that it has on me. And I know if I'm working to get to a healthier place when it comes to being a father and having a relationship with him, that those conversations need to take place and are equally, if not greater, are more important than the conversations that I have trying to turn him into a 17-year-old adult. So that's what I got for you guys today. I thank you guys so much for tuning in live. I'm going to close out with what comments we have going on. Let's see. Brother Bruce jumped in, or Brother Damien jumped in, said this topic was fire because so many people need to learn how to navigate through their failures to get to their breakthrough. Absolutely. Terlin agrees with you. Brother Bruce, it looks like he agrees with you. The message I'm receiving is exactly what I needed. Hey, you know what? I'm hoping that every time you guys tune into a Wednesday word, that the message is right on point and right on time. And I promise you, these messages that I'm sharing with you guys are messages that are right on point and right on time for myself as well. And then last but not least, Terlin, yeah, feelings are contradictory, and yet you found a way to begin the shift, even if it wasn't that pretty. Well done. Better bumpy and spoken. that I think been beautiful in your head. Absolutely. That is where it is at. So other than that, I want to thank you guys again for tuning in live. The next time you will see me live on the first row for the third Wednesday word will be February, and the third Wednesday in February is the 19th, my goddaughter's 18th birthday. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the first row. If you like this video, please share it. If you share it, please like it. I'm always happy to engage with you guys live in the chats. If you want to, you can actually engage with me in the comments if you're watching via the replay. But until the next time, thank you for sitting on the first row. Until then, one love, peace, and God bless.